for whom the bell tolls and all that. They toll for thee, as the old saying used to go. But back at Worksop Priory today, here to make another count of Leiobunum species A. It's ongoing work that Dillis and I did ever since finding Leiobunum species A new to the UK, about a mile away from here in Worksop on a house wall. Then in 2012 we found more on the walls of Worksop Priory, and every year made several visits to survey and count the number of Leiobunum species A present. Today is another such survey. Will the count be up on my last visit here, or will it have dropped a little bit as the aggregations perhaps start to break up? All will be revealed. It's an absolutely glorious day. We've finally seen some sun. We haven't seen any for about 2 or 3 days, and that makes things a whole lot brighter. But just before I start the count, and the count will be started at the far end of this southern wall of Worksop Priory, I thought it might be just of interest to let people know that another population has been found in Nottingham, and you may as well have seen it on a recent video that I did of the Park Tunnel. I counted 120 Leiobunum species A there, and that was one of the highlights of the year for me. But I actually filmed that after I'd visited another Nottingham site on Bilby Walk and Shakespeare Street, on the walls of the Arkwright building, part of the Nottingham Trent University. 83 were present, which was up a little bit on that count from last year, but there were signs that Leiobunum species A had spread more across the buildings there. No news for a few years of Nottingham's other site in Nuttall on a housing estate. I'm presuming that it's still there, but recent counts here at Worksop Priory indicate a really good population still. On Bridge Street, about 400-500 yards west of where I am, there is a population of at least 38 on there, and they've been there for a number of years now, as have the population at Worksop's B&Q on Sandy Lane. A recent count I visited there took us into 3 figures and a count of approximately 102. What we'll get on these walls here I don't know, but I can tell you that there are 4 Leiobunum species A males on the other side of this tomb. So hopefully we'll get over 200. That's the hope. Whether they're still all in large aggregations, I don't know. Or maybe there will be some signs that pairs are pairing off and going their own separate ways. Well, rather surprising, because the news is that the aggregations, certainly that were on this southern wall, have broke up. I found a well scattered total of 19. I didn't expect this, because I thought that the aggregations would still be largely intact. They're not. The largest group that I've seen are 3, if you don't count the 4 that is on the tomb just at the back of camera. I'm quite shocked, but they've obviously split up. In fact, I can see another 2 now in this little recess here. They're all now in very small groups. There's going to be no large aggregations even when I get round onto the northern side. I'll be lucky to find 100, but large drops in the population of this species I've noticed before in previous years. We've had really good counts and then come back and all of a sudden there's nothing, but that's usually followed extremes of weather, whether it's been incredibly high temperatures and very hot temperatures on the walls, of course, prolonged periods of cold weather, or incredibly wet weather. we've not had any of those this year, so I'm presuming that the aggregations have just all broke up of their own accord and pairs have gone their separate ways. It's very difficult lighting such a contrast to the sunny sandstone and that bit of shade, but these two have found a nice little niche, a little almost where a pebble's come out of the stone you could liken it to, but I'm surprised to find that the aggregations have indeed broken up, and most of what I've seen have been males together, but where they all go I don't know. I know that they do scatter to all parts of the walls, and when it gets to this time of year you do tend to find isolated specimens just tucked in any little recess, well scattered from others. So we're on to a count of 21 with these two and the 4 on the tomb. So we'll carry on round, see what kind of total we can get. It's not going to be a good one. Well, the usual aggregation is tucked at the top of that archway there on the vertical surface, and from what I can see that takes us up to a count of 35. I'm surprised actually that that group is still there, but it has declined in numbers. I've not seen any real sign though. On the eastern side there was nothing on the eastern side, and this technically is part of the eastern side going onto the northern side, but I've seen no singles or pairs of Leiobunum sp.A on any of these walls. I'd love to know how far they range and where they go. Do they go up? Do they go down? Mind you, never seen any evidence of that. Well, you might be able to just make out the bodies. There are 3 in here, all males. Now that those 2 have separated, I thought it was 1 male guarding a female, but these 3 are all males, so we're on to 38. Oh, in between the columns here and the other architecture on this northern wall, total's now gone up to 58, and the majority are males. In fact, so far there isn't a single female on this northern side. There's a very active wasp nest quite high up. Nice to see though. It's only the second wasp nest I've found this year. But on that last clip I mentioned that there were no female Leiobunum sp.A here on this northern side, and then indeed there weren't. None in that group of males, and in the other small groups that I've seen they've all been males, but I have now found 3, and 2 are under that little overhang there, that little bit of architraving so to speak, and 1 is tucked nicely in a little recess, as were those 2 on the southern walls. Interesting that the females don't seem to be having anything to do with the males now. Presumably they're mated and are now wandering the walls of Worksop Priory and laying eggs in suitable cracks and crevices. I've still got some more of the northern wall to do, and then the arches, which usually produces quite a few, but the running total now is 61. It's an absolutely beautiful, I can say autumn day now, because we're a couple of days into astronomical autumn. We've gone past the autumnal equinox. It feels like September now, which you would hope it would do really in September. But it's a very, very nice day here at Worksop Priory today. Well, here's the perfect opportunity to look in good light at an adult female See how, if you've seen the other videos, you'll notice how much darker overall the body has become on this adult female. She's lost one leg unfortunately, but losing one leg is quite good for a harvestman with such long legs. None of the ones I've seen today have had the white knees. They've all now molted to maturity and they've stopped growing. Numbers will now decline as the population thins out on the wall and the males die off and the females start to die off once they've laid the eggs, but I will be checking to see if we can get one just around Christmas time, or maybe even into the new year, depending on having a favourable winter. But these are super things. Obviously I have a great affinity with these after Dillis and I found them new to the UK all those years ago. I still enjoy coming to see them here each year, several times each year, and monitoring the population. The population hasn't exploded like it was anticipated. It's remained constant. Maybe they reach a point, almost a saturation point, where the population can be sustained anymore, and it can't be, so they have to look elsewhere. It'd be interesting to know just how this species has got around Nottinghamshire and the UK. Certainly it's possible that the colony here has sort of budded and gone elsewhere, and could be responsible for those on Bridge Street and ultimately on Sandy Lane at B&Q, but that's doubtful. I think there's been a succession of imports of this species over the years via probably the building trade and the timber trade. But what a fabulous thing. I would love to go back and find them on the estate where Dillis and I found that first one back in 2009. I have been back several times, scoured everywhere, but never did find another one. What a chance encounter and find that was. And if I didn't or hadn't have had an interest in harvestmen, I wouldn't be here now, no doubt. And I'll be back again. Well, over the course of all four sides of Worksop Priory today, I've ended up with a total of 68 Leiobunum sp.A. That's just a fraction of previous counts here. Next time I come, it'll probably be around Christmas, maybe before, and we'll see if we can just find one on those later visits. So, until then, this one's got fed up now and is going wandering off to look for somewhere to settle down for the day. It's a super species.